well via Zoom all the way from Germany. We have Gretha Ferreira, now known as Gretha Hausmann. Gretha has just competed in the World Equestrian Games representing South Africa and taking not only herself but the country to a personal best of 70%, which is really an outstanding achievement. I did say to Gretha that her horse, known as Dani, must have a very strong back because he had an entire nation riding that particular competition with him. Thank you so much for joining us, Gretha. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're very good. Thank you. You've just gotten married, had a honeymoon, competed at Herning. You're raising a 1-year-old. Thank you so much for making time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it.
We have to thank Leo because he finally fell asleep.
That's perfect. That's perfect. We've all been there, all three of us sitting here.
Yeah.
So great. So just before we discuss Herning, which I'm sure so many people are dying to hear about, including myself, would you mind just telling us like where your dressage career began?
Oh, where do I start, Georgie? We of course know each other for a long time. But I think because my whole life I've basically been riding and started really early at 3.5. My mom took me to a riding school, and then in children's, I pretty much did all the disciplines and jumping and eventing and dressage with Claire Webb. And then when it was time to go to juniors, I then transitioned to dressage and Karen Keller became my coach and I fell in love with dressage and the rest is pretty much history.
What made you fall in love with dressage? I mean, it's easy for Di, myself and you to talk about this because I think when you've had that feeling, it's just there's nothing like it. But maybe you can be a bit more eloquent than us. So
I have a very vivid image of in my mind, and I've spoken about this in a lot of interviews, and I just thought till this day I won't forget this moment. And I got my first horse, and he was standing at Claire Webb's, and he was in the field in the morning, and we went, and he got excited about something, and then in the moment he was pretty much doing a passage in the field, and at that point I didn't know what that was, but I was fascinated by how this horse was moving, and to this day it's such a vivid image in my mind, and I just thought I want to know how that horse is doing that, and I want to recreate it when I'm riding it. And it for some reason something bit me in that moment, and that is just what I was like. And then Claire was such a good coach, because honestly, she has had so many different type of children riders and pony riders with her. And she really has groomed all of us to figure out what it is that our passion is. And she said, look, Greta, I think if this is something that interests you, then you should probably go into dressage. And she then put me in contact with Karen Keller, and that is how it all started. And so that's where the love for dressage started. I think I was about 12 or 13. So
that's just wonderful. And where are you based now, Greta, and why are you based where you're based?
So I'm based in a town called Mülheim an der Ruhr, and the closest big town to it in Germany is Düsseldorf. It's like 15 minutes away from us, Düsseldorf. And I'm based in Germany because if you want to do these level of international shows, you have to be, I think like Di and Nicole also know, you have to be based in Europe, and you have to be somewhere central where you can travel to all these big shows. I mean, if we travel to these shows, some of the shows are still 6 to 8 hours away, but it is all doable. And I think at the end of the day, Germany is just quite central. And as a heart and a hub of the sport, so dressage, I mean now specifically.
Yes.
So
I think Germany is the hub of so much equestrian sport. I mean, it's just wonderful.
That's true.
I was just saying to Di, very naively, for South Africans, we feel like Kyalami, which is obviously was your home at one stage, is the heart of our equestrian sport, but it's a very different kind of scenario compared to you guys. Greta, why don't you tell us a little bit about your horses?
Okay. Where do you guys want me to start?
So I think we all want to know about Dani, but also who your up-and-coming horses are and why you have these horses. I'm very fascinated by the journey with your horses. I think Dani was meant to be a show jump. No, that was
No, that was Lavinia. So, long story short, in 2013, I was finished with studying at University of Pretoria, and yeah, ideally, I think I would have wanted to go overseas straight after matric, but my mom and dad was very strict about getting a degree, and I'm happy I did it because I have it behind my name.
You
and
have an
you never know what
LLB, I
happens
think,
in life.
Greta.
No, become investment management.
Okay. Even better. And then you went and chose the worst investment possible. I mean, the irony is
pretty much.
not
I went
lost.
and decided to invest in horses and not stocks. Yeah. No. Yeah. And then when I was finished with studying, I said to my parents, look, they of course knew what my passion was always. And I said, I really want to still go overseas. And 2013, we went over to Denmark and we looked at horses, and the plan was actually to find a horse and to bring it back to South Africa. And then when I got here to Europe, I just realized this is my dream and this is what I want to do and this is where I want to be. And if I want to achieve something, I have to be here. If I want to achieve the big things that I wanted to achieve. And and then we looked at a lot of horses, and I found Zidane, or we found Zidane at Hausmann. We looked at him, and he was a 4.5-year-old, really scrawny, but I just fell in love with him. And that was not the plan at all. The plan was to come over and look for a horse that's, say, 6 or so, that could maybe already do walk-trot transitions. The flying changes didn't have to be in, but the plan was to get a horse to take back to South Africa. And I got here and I just realized, look, if I'm going to have to, for the amount of money that we had to spend at that time, I will have to go for a younger horse with a higher quality, because the moment these horses can do things here in Europe, they are so expensive, it's sometimes unaffordable. So, so we got it done, and I realized there's no point in bringing him back to South Africa if I want to be here and I want to do things here. And that's where the whole journey started. So he was actually the first horse that we got here in Europe, and he was 4.5. And then my whole process started of flying back and forth between South Africa and coming here for. So Zidane stayed. It's really a funny story. Zidane stayed at Hallstrand then, and at that stage, Daniel Bachmann-Andersen was still working for Hallstrand, and Daniel then trained me on Zidane. And then when I was not there in Denmark, he would ride Zidane and keep him fit, and then I would go over and ride with Daniel and Zidane. And then after a few years, or 2 years or so, I think, 3 years it was, I just decided this is not working in the sense of flying back and forth. It's just too time consuming. It is too expensive. And I cannot completely submerge myself into the sport like you have to if you want to achieve these things.
Why were you flying
And then
home?
I made the decision. Say again?
Why were you flying home at that stage instead of basing yourself?
Family. I think at the end of the day, it is really hard to go to a different country that's not your home, that's not South Africa, and to sit there alone. And there was many nights of crying and being alone and being like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And it's a very, very hard process if you're doing this alone. You get thrown into a country where you're driving on the wrong side of the road, you can't speak the language, you're completely overstimulated, completely overflowed in a way with all this information that you kind of have to be to a point and say, right, and I mean, at that point I was still very young. So it's a big learning curve, and you have to really be tough to do it.
I think a lot of people glamorize it, and it's actually, as you say, and I know as Nicole has said before, it's really stressful. It's stressful. It's scary. It's a very solitary journey.
It's a very, very eensaam, like you would say in Afrikaans.
Love that.
It's you give up a lot. You give up a lot to do this, and I think the biggest thing you give up is being around your family. That is definitely for me still to today. It's a very hard thing. And yes, I'm married now and I have my own child, but
not to have Almarie with you.
Yes.
I'm sure she wants to be. She
Exactly.
wants to be a present granny. I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. So it is video calls all the time, and it's never the same, Georgie. But at the end of the day, you have to weigh up what you're doing here and what is your passion and what do you really want to achieve, and are you willing to do it or not? And that's what it comes down to.
Sorry, and then besides Dani, you then got Lavinia, and you have a lovely grey as well, who I can't recall at the moment.
Yeah, so the grey is called Kalyani. We call him Kali Bear to be exact, because he's just an absolute teddy bear. All my horses have completely different personalities, attitudes, and the funny thing though is that everyone keeps saying to me, Greta, you don't really have a type. And then I said, no, I don't have a type. But the one thing is that I've realized is that every single one of my horses has got some type of jumping blood in them.
That's interesting.
So I clearly do have some type of type on the mother line, because they all have jumping blood on them in the mother line.
Those old eventing roots of yours.
Yes, yeah. I really honestly think something there comes through, Georgie, because it's the weirdest thing. Every single horse that I seem to connect with or find, like my type of horse, has some type of jumping line in it.
Greta, what are like 3 things that you look for? I mean, obviously you found Dani when he was really young and he's just spectacular. But what are 3 things that you would advise people to look for in a horse if they were looking for a high performance dressage horse? Besides passaging in the field.
Yeah, no, this is a big thing. I don't want to, I think the thing is the following. I can jump in here and say rideability and this and that. The problem is the following for me. I have now trained 3 different horses here in Europe to Grand Prix, and they've all been completely different. And Lavinia has had unbelievable rideability, 100%. She will take a bullet for you, and she will continue doing it. Zidane has been an obscenely difficult journey. So when it comes to rideability, I can't say that is the thing that it was that got him to Grand Prix. And Kali in itself is also not the most rideable. I think if I have to be honest, I think it comes to, and it's hard to put that in words and it's hard to see that in a horse, but it comes to heart. It comes to, does this horse have heart to do this? Because it's not always about the most rideable horse or the easiest horse that goes to Grand Prix. These horses, when you get to this level of Grand Prix, there's something else that you can't really put into words that they have to have. It's a fire that will fight for you. So I think it's more about, can you connect with this horse that is in front of you? And can you build a partnership with this horse? I think that's more important.
Will you go to war for your horse? It's a
Say that again?
Will you go to war for your horse? It's a very two-way street.
And it sounds very like theatrical in a way, but I've gone through this now many times, and it is through and through the thing that comes out at the end is, what type of relationship can you build with this horse? Is this horse a horse that, it doesn't have to have people, it doesn't have to have many people that it trusts, but does it trust you? That's the most important, I think.
We were talking about the origins of dressage earlier on and saying that it was originally a cavalry discipline, you know, and that's how it was born. And it's interesting that you raised that. I really love that. Who are you currently coaching with, Greta?
You're going to laugh, but no one except Patrick. Patrick has been for the last, since 2018, when we went to the World Equestrian Games. It's been him and I.
That's fantastic.
And we just work together. Yeah, sometimes he's very harsh on me and then I get harsh back, but it works, and he has a phenomenal eye, and he's strict with me, and he says a thing as it is. He's German in that way. And even though he doesn't ride at this level, some people just have this natural ability to see things, you know, that are capable. So it's been him and I, and it's been a very big momentous moment for us, what happened in WEG, of course, because we've been at it day in, day out. And so
What for yourself as a rider, but also for other riders, what's the biggest thing that you, for yourself as a rider, have like invested in from a personal development point of view? Like a lot of people swear by Pilates, other people say mental coaching is the absolute, like cornerstone of their training. What for you would you say riders must prioritize?
Mind, definitely mind.
That's interesting.
I think the sport is so so hectic, in the sense of psychological. People sometimes don't understand how psychologically taxing it can get. And we always say, like, we ride our horse for 40 minutes, and for the rest of the 23 hours of the day we are sitting there thinking about it, and it is what it is. And I have to also be honest, I think for me it's an addiction, because something might not work that day, and then I will literally sit there and think about it the whole day. The only time I don't think about it is while I'm riding a different horse. But the moment I really try my hardest that every single horse that I ride, and also the clients' horses that I have here that are here with me for training, that I really ride every horse and I get on them with a blank slate. But of course, when something didn't work with my own horse, when I'm finished with work in that regard and I'm finished teaching everyone, I sit there and I start thinking. And so, I think psychologically you have to be very strong, and you have to mentally prepare yourself for everything.
Totally. Okay, so tell us about Herning. I mean, it just sounds like that there's that iconic photo of you, just with both fists up in the air. Donnie just looks so pleased with himself. He looks like he's smiling. You're grinning. Obviously you guys have had this enormous long preparation towards this, and this is by no means the penultimate moment in your journey, but obviously to this date it has been. How was your preparation for this? And are you okay? It's just wonderful, Greta. And you're going to make me cry as well. Please don't do that. We're all so incredibly proud of you.
Thanks.
We're busy recording, so we can edit that out, but I really don't want to edit that out.
It's okay.
I just feel it really speaks to the absolute raw emotion of everything you've sacrificed, and you're believing in this horse, going to war for this horse going to war for you. And how often in life does it all come together in such a perfect moment?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen often. And I mean, for a lot of other big names in Europe, like a 70% is not a big deal, but it is a very big deal for us. It's a really big deal for us. It's a really big deal for me, because at the end of the day, that's always the first goal that we, as a rider at this level, want to achieve. And I think it all just got so momentous because of the amount of times that I literally thought, I'm not going to get this horse to Grand Prix, and it's just not going to work. And when it then eventually all comes to plan, and we all have this these horses in our life that we believe in, and we know what their potential is, and he has been that. But it's never been able to really pull off or pull together, and to have gone out into that stage and to do it there, and he just, and it wasn't a perfect test, but for that day, he was the most he was with me ever. And it was just something that you just couldn't put into words. And I think that's also, like, I couldn't actually help my emotion when I saw the scoreboard. I think lots of people probably thought, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of the riders, of my fellow riders who were competing with me, just like really celebrated with me, because they understand this feeling. They understand what we work for every day of our life here, and what we strive for, and the amount of disappointment we have to go through every time we go to a show and it doesn't pull off for whatever reason. And it was just something so unbelievably special that I'll never ever forget in my life. And hopefully I can continue growing and becoming better with him. And yeah, like earlier you said, I must speak about Kali and stuff. And he's also a really special horse. And I love them. And everyone always says to me, yeah, who's your favorite horse? And I can't answer that, Georgia. I truly, honestly can't answer that, because it's really, honestly, two completely different animals. They have such different characters that you just can't explain that and say, right, I love this one more than the other one. But for where Zidane and I started and where we are now and what happened that day, yeah, it was a momentous moment for us both, for all of us, for our whole team, for me, for Patrick, for Senya, my groom, my vet, my farrier. It is. Everyone thinks it's an individual sport, but it's not. It's a team sport, really. Honestly, all these things have to work and yeah. So. Yeah.
I think it's also, you raised something which is so lovely, and we've just come off of a week of the South African National Dressage Championships here.
Yes, I saw.
And it's so lovely, Greta, to hear you push the narrative that the 70% was for you the highlight, because you often see people coming off a podium in third place, and obviously it's a different. I'm sure Charlotte would be disappointed with the 70 at some point. But it's so much about your own journey dressage, and it's not necessarily 100%. About the win. Sometimes it's about being happy to get a 60. In your case, to get a 70 and to pull that out, as you said, this enormous. I'm getting choked up again. In this enormous stadium, you literally had to say to your horse, "I need it now. I need everything we've put to. Like, I need you to give it to me now." And he went, "Okay." And I just think that's
It can I?
Yes, please.
And I think at the end of the day.
Sorry, Di.
Yeah, Di.
No, having watched all of this with Nicole and you guys and everything, you're basically riding against yourself
all the time.
Yeah,
at the
always.
level that you guys are at, you're riding against yourselves. So when you get these really good marks like Greta got, it's like, as you say, maybe Isabel would be disappointed, but it's this massive achievement that
it's
nobody
phenomenal.
Even can believe.
It's really amazing.
And I think that's exactly what you said. What you guys also just said. Now, at the end of the day, that day was my win.
Yeah.
It was literally like I won for myself, and that's a feeling that you just, my mom always said, Greta, it's always, honestly, from the day that I can remember starting dressage, my mom always said to me, Greta, it's always about improving your personal best. That's all that this matters about. And that is exactly what that day was. So it's a phenomenal feeling. It's really great.
Greta, you touch on your team and you say your farrier, your vet, your groom. What is something that you prioritize horse care wise for your horses that you think people should give attention to?
Yeah, so I think what's really important for me, what's been very hard in the beginning, now it's not so difficult anymore because I'm based here in Mulheim and at Patrick's farm here. In the beginning was very hard for me because we in South Africa have a very, very high level of horsemanship where we allow our horses to go out in the fields and the paddocks, and there's much more letting a horse be a horse, and that has not been the easiest here in the beginning. It was very hard. Lots of people frowned upon me for letting my Grand Prix horses go to the field or whatever. And for me, that from day one has been super important, and I still to this day believe in it, and I will stand by it, and I morally feel very strong about it. And for example, here with us, we have what's called a paddock box. So the stable is the stable, and then there's like a walk out for every horse, so they can walk in and out. And most people don't allow their really high level sport horses in a box like that. But I believe the more the horse can move, the better, because of course due to weather they can't go out like we do it in South Africa. They just can't. If there's snow or there's ice, it's too dangerous. So I personally really try and let my horses be horses as much as possible. That's a big thing for me. I try and get them on different footing quite often, because I think it's very important for the tendons.
The FEI
But
actually
yeah, I
did
think
a great white paper a couple of years ago, and the event horses had the longest sound careers in the FEI, and they put it down to that.
And it's because they are mostly on different types of footing all the time. They are being horses at the end of the day. And I think, touch wood, so far it's been working for me, and I will continue doing it this way. Of course, my vet is here, and we really look at the horses every 3 to 6 months and do checks on them and flexions and see if they're fine. And if they need help somewhere, then we treat them. But so far, everything has been going smoothly, and I'm blessed in that regard. And I think at the end of the day, you have to just try as much as possible, as hard as it is, not to try and wrap these horses that are this good in cotton wool.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to let them be horses. Yeah.
Well, their mental health is equally as important as ours.
Definitely. Definitely.
Greta, one last question. What comes next for you? What comes after a 70 at the World Equestrian Games?
I think it's.
I hoped you were going to say an 80.
Of course, we can all dream, and I will continue dreaming, and I will continue. I think, Georgie, my biggest dream and my biggest goal is to hopefully eventually get in the top 50 of the world, in the world rankings. I really want to go for that. I don't know how long it will take, but it's my next goal. So we will see how. But then I also have to say, I am a mom, and Leah, of course, for me comes first. And it was really all like really a blessing from God that this worked with WEG, because it wasn't really planned that I was going to go and do Herning. I didn't know if I would manage to do it after giving birth to Leo. So I think for me right now, I'm taking it day by day. Of course, I have my dreams and my goals, and I want to improve on the 70 and just keep going at where I'm going at, and hopefully continue, opening or letting the dressage world internationally start to see South Africa as well, and see, we are capable, and we do have a lot of knowledge and a lot to give the sport in a way. And I think a big thing that we have to give is passion. I think a lot of riders here that's been at this for so long, because the sport is so old, they sometimes lose the essence of what dressage is about, and about the purity of it, of how you really build this relationship with this horse to do these things for us that they don't have to do. Let's be honest about it. They don't have to go in Passage and Piaffe. We're making them do that. So, yeah.